Hello and good afternoon to all our participants in the Summer Internship Program 2025. And today we have a special session, as you can see, on career and life design, and which will be conducted by Professor Somprakash Bandyopadhyay. And as you can see on the screen, Professor Bandyopadhyay has been a former professor at three of the most prestigious institutes of our country. IIM Calcutta, where he spent the most of his time, IIT Kharagpur and IIT Bombay. He's a BTech from IIT Kharagpur and his PhD from Jadavpur University. He has more than 40 years of diverse experience spanning across multiple disciplines, both in academia and in industry, combining teaching, research, consultancy, and technology development for several organizations of international repute. Currently, Professor Bandyopadhyay is the founder director for a not-for-profit center called Career and Life Design. As you can see on the screen, the link for the center is also given. The rest of the introduction, I will leave it to Professor Bandyopadhyay. I want to thank him very much for making his time today to address our interns. And maybe there are few more external participants also whom I had requested to join. So over to you, Professor Bandyopadhyay. I am sure that
Thank you.
we have a really valuable session today.
Thank you, Ognimitra, for inviting me to this session, and good afternoon to all participants. I am here to help you design your life. Okay, so it sounds slightly different because we know that human being from the very beginning of the civilization is used to design a lot of artifacts, and then we design artifacts and design process, design systems, but we rarely talk about designing our life. Okay, so it's interesting question, and often it's treated in the domain of a philosophical inquiry. But I think that we need a very actionable answers and practical answers to this particular question. What should we do with our life? Okay, so let me start with this quotation: life is a mission, not a career. So often we think that selecting a career is equivalent to design a life. And just I'll go through my presentation, and if you have some questions you can put it in your chat box. Okay, and I'll occasionally visit the chat box to answer your questions, and at the end of the session we'll have some interactive session. And of course, after the session also, you can always interact with me. My WhatsApp number is given here, and my all the details are also given. So I encourage you to discuss and interact with me, because it's not a kind of one-time 2-hour session through which you'll be able to design your life in that sense. Okay, so let me start with a brief introduction of myself, which is already given by Ognimitra. So I was in professor of IIM Calcutta for 21 years, and before that I was in ATR Japan for 1 year, and then PricewaterhouseCoopers, where I met Ogni for 6 years, and then IIT Kharagpur, IIT Bombay, and German Research Center for Artificial Intelligence, Jadavpur University, where I did my PhD, and Tata Institute of Fundamental Research. Okay, so it's an interesting journey, and maybe at the end I will do a case study of my life. Okay, which is quite interesting in that sense, because you can see the variety of different disciplines, starting from a technology career to management career, and then in between industrial visits, etc. So anyway, so the after retirement, say in 2022, I created this center called Center for Career and Life Design Counseling. Okay, so I'm not exactly a career counselor in that sense. So I call me a personal growth consultant. Okay, and my task is to empower individuals to craft purposeful, fulfilling careers and lives. And essentially, every organization has to have a kind of mission statement. So we also have a mission statement is to help individuals embrace their iterative process of career growth, experiment with diverse opportunities, and align their career with their values and life goals. You see that every time I am talking about integration of life aspiration and career aspiration, okay, and that's very important thing, okay, sir. And the methodology we use design thinking, okay, so it's a model from Stanford University Design School. They also conduct several workshops on life design based on design thinking, and we equip individual to thrive in an ever evolving professional landscape. You see that our today's the world is very you should say very chaotic, in the sense that you see a lot of digital disruptions is happening. There are variations in the political economic situations all around the world, and it's a very evolving and dynamic situations, and there you cannot have a very fixed rigid profession or rigid career path, okay, so you have to evolve and you have to change and you have to be adaptive. So essentially, so as I said, that my contact details are always there, so you can always contact me in future whenever you need it. Okay, so essentially, we start with a kind of dysfunctional belief which we have. Okay, what do you want to be when you grow up? Okay, so I think in school days also you see that either you have to be a doctor or engineer or chartered accountant or lawyer or whatever. Okay, so, but we never ask questions that okay, after I become that engineer or doctor, what should I do? Means is that enough to define a particular life or design a particular life? Okay, so that belief can be reframed as how can I make my existence meaningful to me and to others? Okay, so it's always important because we live in a community. Okay, so it's not that it's my life, it's basically my life is for a community. That's how human civilization has grown. So it's not only that it should make my existence meaningful, it cannot be meaningful unless it makes meaning to others. Okay, so life is about the journey and it's not the destination. So essentially, why we need to reframe this, why we need to change that our search for a career to a search for a life. Okay, so you see, most of the time we ask very conventional questions like whether I should do BBA or LLB, or is it a good idea to uh, quit my job and do an MBA, or is biotechnology is better than computer science these days? So these are important questions, but these are dictated by kind of societal norm, stereotypical beliefs, and current job markets. Okay, because we always kind of in, especially in our society, we always have a belief that okay, if you are good student, you should study science. Okay, so it's very surprising if you get 90% in your class 10 and you take humanities. Okay, so this is a kind of societal norm or stereotypical belief that, for example, computer science is better than history. Okay, or the current job market is very good if you read data science or data analytics, etc. Okay, so these are important. Okay, but uh, basically it's not empower you to align your aspiration, strength, and uh, explore different opportunities. Okay, so you don't they don't support resilience in a changing world, because as you know that world is changing, as I mentioned, that it does not empower you towards lifelong adaptability and growth. We also often do some psychometric test to some specialist and for career planning, and it's focusing primarily on person job kind of fit. But these kind of methods do not encourage you to search for intentional living and purposeful work. So what we need is not a prescription, okay, that you study engineering or study medicine, but a design process to help you take informed decision among multiple career life choice. This is from Steve Jobs, I don't think of my life as a career. I do stuff, respond to stuff, and that's not a career, it's life. Okay. There is another saying that there is something infantile in the presumption that somebody else has a responsibility to give your life meaning and point. The truly adult view, by contrast, is that our life is as meaningful, as full, and as wonderful as we choose to make it. Okay, so that means that an organization cannot make your life meaningful. Okay, so we always dream, say, for example, we should go to, say, a good institution like IIT or IIM, and that will make my life meaningful. So it's not true. Means you have the responsibility to make your life meaningful, and it depends on you how you want to look at your life and how you make yourself meaningful to others and to yourself. Okay, so it's not the responsibility of an organization. It's good that, okay, if you can go to good organization, it's always good, because you get to interact with a lot of good people. You you you, you can explore different domain of knowledge and expertise and all. That is true, but that doesn't mean that that organization has the responsibility to design your life. Okay, so let's talk about the conventional career planning. How do we do that? Okay. Because you are now in your college and university days, and essentially always you are looking for career. Career meaning you are always thinking of what kind of subject you should learn, or what kind of certification program you would do, or what kind of job you will take, etc. Okay. So the conventional process is that advice driven, informal, like you talk to your friends or mentor or peer. And this is basically focusing on individuals' practical insight and experimental wisdom. Okay. So we normally use this kind of process. Means, for example, these days, in fact, students mostly rely on peer group, and maybe in your peer group, you'll find someone who is little bit knowledgeable, and he says that, okay, this is good, this is bad, and you take decision accordingly. There another process which is basically the conventional career counseling, which essentially do some psychometric tests and do some kind of career mapping and guide career decision by assessing interest, personality, value, skills. And there are several tools available in this domain. RIASEC and MBTI models are very famous and starting point on this kind of tool, but now there are a variety of tools. Okay, so let me give some examples of conventional career planning process. So one process is essentially, yeah, I'm seeing some question in the chat box. Okay, I'll take that little later. Okay, maybe during some break. Okay, so you keep on asking question in the chat box, and I'll take every say half an hour to address those issues. Okay, so let's look at the famous Holland's RIASEX model, which essentially uh, trying to grade or kind of rate people or individual in 6 dimensions. Okay, so one is realistic, prefer practical hands-on problem and solution. Second is artistic, value creativity and self-expression. Third is enterprising, leads, persuade and influence others. Fourth is investigative, enjoy thinking, research and problem solving. Fifth is social, help others and value interpersonal relationship. And sixth is conventional, prefer structured task and organization. Okay, so let me see some of the questions which typically is administered in a kind of RIASEC test. Yeah, so just one more. So this is basically one example, and this is from your US Department of Labor, Employment and Training Administration, which essentially conduct this test, and then based on the result, they categorize in different career clusters. Okay. So if you look at the questions, okay, so the questions are typically like this. Okay, so you have to answer 60 this kind of question, and you have to see whether you like or dislike in a 5-point scale. Okay, so for example, build kitchen cabinet, lay bricks or tiles, develop a new medicine, study ways to reduce water pollution, write books or plays, play musical instrument, teach an individual an exercise routine, help people with personal and emotional problems, buy and sell stocks and bonds, manage a retail store, etc. So these kind of questions, around 60 questions, what you like and what you dislike. So basically to find out your interest in a particular job or kind of jobs you like or dislike. And based on that, essentially, there are several questions, as I said. And based on that, you essentially grade that particular individual in this six domain, as I said: realistic, investigative, artistic, social, enterprising, and conventional. As you can see, this particular person who has taken this test, maybe enterprising score is very high, and then artistic score is high, like that. So based on this, mm, essentially the next step is to, there are career clusters, 16 career clusters, which is defined, which I'll come later. So they are trying to put those in those career clusters. For example, if you're realistic, then essentially you can be mechanic, carpenter, radiological technologist, or engineers, woodworkers, etc. If you are conventional, it's better profession is for you accountant, bookkeepers, data processing, etc. If you are enterprising, then you can be a politician, real life agent, real estate agent, travel agent, etc. Investigative means you can be a physician or psychologist or software engineer, etc. Artistic meaning you advertising, architect, copyright. Social is counselor, uh, teacher, dietitian, etc. So you see that essentially they are trying to, based on those 6 dimensions, they are trying to put people into different careers. Essentially, it's a matching of your interest and different form of career. Okay. So I used to, I took a test, similar test. Okay. And why I'm saying this, that there are certain limitation in this particular process. In that particular test, they are categorizing in kind of 8 dimension, not 6. So creativity, this is my scope. Okay, so I got highest in creativity and imaginative, then hands-on 20, and then communicative expressive 19. And somehow my analytical scheme come very score came little low. I don't know why. And they suggest that okay, art and design is the best fit in my career, as my career. And they said that okay, it's better you go to advertising, movies, writer, broadcasting, television, so many options in the domain of art and design. And then second option is medicine. Now the important consideration in today's world is that you need creativity in different aspects. For example, it's a combination of profession. That means if you're an engineer, even then you need to be creative or artistic or enterprising. Okay, so it's a combination of traits which define today's career domain. Okay. So this is one form which is interest based. Another is personality trait based, which is basically started with this MBTI, Myers Briggs type classifications. Okay, so they try to classify individual based on 4 personality dimensions. One is extroversion versus introversion. So people who prefer extroversion tends to direct their energy towards outside world and get energized by interacting with people. And on the other end is introversion. People who prefer introversion tends to direct their energy towards their inner world and get energized. Okay, by reflecting on their ideas and experience. Okay, next item is sensing versus intuition. Sensing means people who prefer sensing tend to take information from the real world. Means they based on data driven decision making, and those who are prefer intuition, they prefer intuition based decision making. So they focus mainly on the pattern and interrelationship they perceive. Okay, so not essentially kind of data driven. Next is thinking versus feeling. Okay, so some people prefer to decide and take conclusion based on logical thinking, and some people basically they prefer to take decision based on feeling. Okay, next is judging versus perceiving. Okay, so judging who take judgment typically very quickly means and they're very rigid kind of people making judgment, and another is perceiving who it takes some time to take decision. Okay, and coming to conclusion. So based on this particular method essentially trying to cluster or categorize in 16 dimensions people. Okay, so there are, you see, one is ISTJ. ISTJ means introversion, sensing, thinking, and J is judging. Okay, so like that, the kind of question they ask typically is like this. I am often disorganized and I keep myself organized. So you have to scale it between these two dimensions. Okay. And then I make decision with my head, I make decision with my heart. So you have to place yourself in between, whether you take decision by heart fully or you are in between or you take decision with head. I like to try innovative, I like to use trusted methods. Okay. I keep my thoughts to myself, I speak up. I seek attention from others, I avoid attention from others, etc. So these kind of several questions around 60, 70 they ask. And finally, they are trying to find out in which type you are among these 16. So this is an example here, which is ENTP. ENTP is extraversion, intuition, thinking, perceiving. And researchers describe this ENTP as creative, imaginative, curious, quick, etc. And based on that, all the 16 categorization, they fit some career or some profession here. For example, the ISTJ is realistic, so accountant, government, military office, auditor, business analyst, etc. Those are good. So similarly, say one who's ENTJ, maybe teacher, okay, recruiter, teacher, consultant, etc. So you can see that there are other models which is variations of this, and there are other kind of things. But mostly these models are rigid and static categories that limit flexibility, as you can see from here, and lack of contextual relevance for individual life situation. For example, someone may live in a village, someone in a city, someone in a different financial condition, etc. So context is very important while determining a career choice. Okay, so result often not actionable or practical. As you can see from here, there are suggestions of a multiple types of careers. Okay, so from there to make a particular path, because you want to take one career, so you make a particular path may be difficult to select. So it's not often give you actionable insights about choosing a particular career. Okay, so then over reliance on self-reporting bias is outcome, as you can see, which is obvious. For example, I took a test, and this is one-time test, and it came somehow it comes that my analytical skill is low, which cannot be. Means I am in this engineering research and profession and management research for quite a long time, and I don't think my analytical skill is low, but somehow it depends on only one test result. And this is unsuitable for nonlinear or evolving career path. So career is not a kind of one-time assignment. Okay? So it's not you cannot assign, and in today's world, so things are getting the career types are changing, things are getting obsolete. One type of career, etc., and fails to capture deeper fulfillment need, individual need, or individual values or aspiration. So these things are not essentially handled in conventional career planning. And that's why the question of career and life design comes in. Okay, so in Western countries, they are very actually did a lot of research on this particular combination of career and life design. Okay, and there are different models. Okay, so in our center, we follow the design thinking based model of Stanford University, but that's not the only thing. There are, but the basic idea is that the conventional psychometric test-based career counseling method needs to be changed, and the qualitative kind of methods, which includes life design and uh, uh, career counseling, this should come together. Okay. So now we'll start with life design. Okay, so before that, I want to see if you have some questions. You have any questions? One question is, how was the work at IDEAS Japan, and how did the work and environment personally help you to further your career? Okay, so in IDEAS Japan, I used to do research on ad hoc wellness network. Okay, so and after that I joined IIM Calcutta. In fact, there's a transition from PricewaterhouseCoopers to IIM Calcutta. Okay. So yes, this is very interesting journey. The place Japan is also very interesting and gives me a lot of insights. Okay, is the idea of a stable long-term career becoming outdated in today's economy? Yes. Yeah. Which sector, corporates, academic, startup, do you think offered the most sustainable career path over the next 10, 20 years? It depends. Means, what do you mean by sustainable career path? Okay, so career path means, for example, academician. I, as an academician, my career path as an academician is sustainable. But if you look at my research topic or areas, for example, I used to teach in IIT, where I used to teach, say, computer architecture or networking, etc. And when I'm in IIM, I used to teach different thing. My research topic was different. For the last 10 years, my research topic was not at all closely related to technology, but it's not engineering solution, giving engineering solution. I used to work on social problem, solving social problem using social technologies. Okay, so sustainable in the sense, if I stick to a particular uh, uh, knowledge type in that sense. Okay, so that's not sustainable. Even you are in academics or in, you have to grow. The main thing is that you have to grow. So it's your profile which is more important than your knowledge. So knowledge is always, you need to augment the knowledge, increment the knowledge, and you need to see knowledge means what. Knowledge is not static entity. So that's how if you want to make yourself sustainable in the world, in the surroundings. Okay, so you have to be dynamic, you have to be adaptive to the changing situations. So neither corporate nor academia nor startup, nothing can give you a sustainable career path in that sense unless you evolve. I hope I answer your question. Okay, so, sir, how can we get research internship at foreign units, and can you help us with that? Yeah, that's a very specific question. So once again, you can talk to me later, and you can see this how you can get in foreign universities. But once again, my today's theme is not to guide you on a particular thing. As I said, I want to give you a macro picture. For example, it's very important to ask why you want to go to foreign universities to do an internship. Okay. Uh, and then what's your motivation for that? What's your topic? And unless you are very clear about that, you will not get admission even in foreign university. If you say that just I want to do internship, it's difficult to get chance. You have to be more precise and more focused on your desire, what you exactly desire. What would be biostatistician future after a few years? Okay, okay, so these are all very specific questions. Okay, so it's very difficult to say what's the future of biostatistician after a few years. As you can see, the world is very fast, the moving very fast, especially with the impact of AI and machine learning. Okay, so yeah, the role would be changing and demand will be there, but the job the knowledge profile will definitely get changed. And please, I think you better think that why do you think so? The future of biostatistician. Then you will understand that why what should be the profile of a biostatistician, means growing profile or growing knowledge base, so that he or she can sustain in this world. Sir, I've taken MBTI personality test earlier. Sometimes it shows I am INFP. I sometimes shows INFJ. I believe I have traits of both personality types. Yeah, actually, that is the case. That is true. Means it's not very rigid framework that you can be categorized. You as an individual human being can be categorized in just in 16 clusters. Okay, or in as in RIASEC in 6 types of interest. Okay, so we have multidimensional. Number one. Number two, it's continuously evolving. Life design not a one time process. It's not that you design life. For example, after retirement I design my life. Okay, so I designed in the sense that I created a center, I planned for the center, and I have different options after retirement. What should I do, and how should I work after my retirement? And this is also a kind of design. So it's not a one-time design. And MBTI or the psychometric test, what it tries to do, it's a static kind of design. It's try to just quantify you in this kind of cluster. So more importantly, you have to ask questions, which I'm coming to those things, which is essentially the questions of life design and why we design thinking, why it is important. In your IM journey, did you find any UG grads from science background working in sectors like marketing, data analytics, hospital management, someone who aspired to do the same on that thing should we focus? Yeah, I have met a lot of UG graduates from science background working in this kind of sectors. Okay, so yeah, so what's the problem? No problem. This sector is not a problem. Okay, so you can work in any sector you wish. Okay, so you have to have proper profile for that. So if you want to do that, you can actually manage your profile and then do some kind of training, and then essentially you can go for that. So it requires some training. You have to convince people that okay, you are capable of doing the particular or in that particular role. Okay, then changing the particular role, even if you are a science graduate like in physics, you can go do marketing. Why not? Okay, so you can do hospital management. Nobody is preventing you. Okay, so the next I'll proceed, and then once again after half an hour I'll come back to this. Okay, so life design and design thinking. Life design is basically start with empathy and reflection. Okay, understanding yourself. Okay, so understanding your values, your expertise, your experience, your strength, weakness. Okay, I'll come in detail later. What is to mean by empathy and reflection? But most important point is that you start with yourself, asking yourself, Attanang Vidhi, you know thyself. Okay. Then ideation is generating multiple life and career path options, okay, based on your likes, dislike. For example, you are studying science, but you are a very good cricketer, okay, and also you are very passionate about doing social service. So whether you'll be a scientist or you'll go to an NGO or you will play cricket, these are the possible paths. And then you have to evaluate those paths. How to evaluate, that's the topic of today's discussion. Okay, but you have to evaluate and ideate different paths, and from that you have to and before evaluation you have to do some kind of prototyping meaning that you have to do certain experiment and knowledge gathering process on that, and then based on that you can take certain decisions. Okay, uh, and this is very human centered approach because it focuses on your desire. Okay, so your life, there are two clients. Okay, one is you yourself. Okay, so your life is for you, and also your life is for others in the community. Okay, so because you belong to a community, So human-centered approach means you should think of yourself, you be empathetic about yourself and also be empathetic about your surroundings. Okay. And then action oriented. It gives you a clear guideline of how to encourage experimentation, learning by doing, and selecting a particular path. And if it's a iterative process, if you don't like it, you can go back and change the path and move forward. Okay, and that's why it should be adaptive so that you can change and you can work on uncertainty. And it's integrative. It's personal life and career goals. You try to always combine these two. Okay. So question is that why do you need to do design your life? Because you always want to have a balanced and meaningful life. It's not, it cannot be defined by your career or job alone. Okay, so what exactly does a balanced or purposeful life look like? So, if you are familiar with this Maslow's hierarchy of need, you can see that Maslow actually, this needs may not be hierarchical, but he has categorized that every human being has several needs. Uh, First, of course, is physiological needs and safety needs. Okay, physiological needs is basic food, water, shelter, sleep, clothing, and safety need is house safety and some employment to get money, health. Then comes the question of love and belongingness. So friendship, intimacy, family. Then the need for esteem, respect, recognition, prestige, and freedom. Then the cognitive need, knowledge, self-awareness. Then the aesthetic need, search for beauty. And finally, the self actualization, personal growth and fulfillment, working for others, attaching with others, doing something which is socially meaningful. So these are the kind of need, and these are human needs. You see that the bottom two needs, which is physiological and safety needs, it's basically is there, and to some extent, love and belongingness is there to all animal species in that sense. And Maslow has shown that after Second World War, the all the industry are too much focused on this physiological need and safety need. For example, in today's world, also, if you go to a shopping mall, you will find that it's flooded with different types of food and clothing shops. Okay, so always trying to cater to only the basic needs. Okay, the physiological needs. And safety needs because say housing, what kind of house? It can be, you can build a house with 10 lakhs also, 1 crore also, 10 crores also, 100 crores also. So there is no limit to that. So the safety need. Okay, so basically the focus is, we call the consumerism or consumer driven society, because the focus is always on this kind of lower level need. And then recently, because of internet and social media, we have some scope of satisfying our love, belongingness, esteem, and to some extent cognitive need and aesthetic need also. But you see, these needs are very human, because human being wants to have these needs fulfilled. Otherwise, human civilization would not have grown. Okay, so you have the desire to know, you have the desire to solve problem, you have the desire to see, appreciate beauty. Okay, you have the desire to desire for self actualization. Okay, so that's how we are tied up in a particular community. So all the desires needs to be satisfied, and your entire life has to have a kind of balanced structure, uh, so that you have this need fulfillment. All the needs has to be fulfilled. So the next question is definitely comes, then how do you measure it? How do you see that whether your life is balanced, or to what extent it is balanced? Okay, so here we come to wheel of life. Okay, this is one tool that helps you visualize all the important areas of your life. Okay, so here there are 8 areas, but this is not very fixed. Okay, you can have other areas also depending on that. So it's not very fixed. So, but in all this area, you see, this called wheel, because wheel has to have a kind of round shape. Okay, so it's a 1 to 10 point scale everywhere. So you have to see in which segment you are more or less satisfied or happy. You have to be happy or satisfied in all the segments. It indicates that your need fulfillment is balanced. Okay, as depicted in Maslow's pyramid. Okay, for example, environment. Okay, so how is your home locality, residency, workplace, and its surroundings? Okay, so whether you are satisfied with that or you want to change that. So as you can see in today's world, even in India, for example, the recent war. Okay, so you know that, okay, if your environment is Jammu and Kashmir, for example, so you are not very satisfied in that place because of political turmoil and other things. Okay, so you may be staying in a village and your opportunity is less, so you may not be satisfied with that. You may be in a work environment which is full of stress and strain. Okay, you may not like that. Okay, so to what extent you like your environment and to what extent you can modify your environment, that's basically the your decision. Okay, but you have to take care of that. Okay, so suddenly you cannot say that my environment is good or bad. Either you accept it or you change it. Then comes the work. You see this here, the profession, work, business, project, what you pursue. As you can see from this wheel, only work and finance is just one of the sectors. So this is not, because while searching for a career, we always think of these two sections only, because we see that what kind of work and what is the financial gain out of it. So we have to look into this too, of course, and but we have to look into other aspects also. Then comes the social contribution. So how you are contributing to the society or attaching to the real world or serving the community. Then health. How are you managing your physical and mental well-being? Social connection. Personal network of friends and family, including intimate partners. Okay. Finance related to income, dates and savings, investment. Growth is creative self-development through learning and practice. And play is hobbies, leisure time, activities, etc. So, while talking about balanced life, we need to consider, or we need to see this, play with this wheel of life to see to what extent you are satisfied and how can you move forward to make a satisfying life. And your every career decision, as we'll see later, has to be mapped on this wheel of life to see that, suppose you have three, four options, you need to see the impact of those options on your wheel of life. You have to have your own wheel of life, which is your dream life. Okay. So it's different for different people. So all people are not giving importance to every sector. Okay. For example, in my case, my environment was prior. The priority is very high in environment. For example, I want to live in Calcutta. Okay, so that's basically very important desire in my wheel of life. So I came from IIT Bombay to IIT Kharagpur and then back to Kolkata, Pricewaterhouse, and then to IIM Calcutta. But every desire is to keep my environment Kolkata. Good or bad, it's no point in asking that whether it's good or bad. It's basically your desire. And I said that you have to be empathetic with your desire. So if that is your desire, so you put emphasis on that. You can put emphasis on social contribution, or you can put emphasis on growth, or even you can put emphasis on finance. That is not a problem. You have to design your life accordingly. So how you design your wheel of life, how you give importance, that absolutely according to you. But what is important is that you should keep give attention to all the segments, and you should give a proper priority to these segments, and you have to analyze based on those segments only. Okay. So next, the how part of it. Okay. So these are basically, okay, we understand the life design and what is balanced life, etc. But then how should we do it? So to answer this question, we take help methodology of design thinking. So as I said, that life design using design thinking is basically is derived from Stanford School of Design School. They have a kind of program on design thinking based life design. So, but first let us understand what is design thinking. So design thinking is an ideology and a process concerned with solving complex problem in a highly user-centric manner. So there's two important things. One is the problem is complex, and user-centric means you have to consider the user perspective, okay, while solving a problem. Usually, what we do in normal design process, we intuitively know the desire of user, and accordingly we make product or process, okay, and then we try to put that, and we assume or we expect that user will accept that, and we give several trainings to the user so that user has to accept those solutions, okay. But there are a lot of complex problems where there is no unique solution. For example, if you are designing a shopping mall, for example, there are several outcomes of that, okay, or designing a resort, okay, so, or designing an user interface for, say, user interface or Facebook or Instagram. How do you do that? There is no unique solution. This is a complex problem, and people needs to be understood. So that's why it's called that design thinking is used to tackle wicked problems, which are complex and difficult to solve with no clear boundaries or definitive solution. So, in order to motivate you, I'll just show you two video clippings. Sorry, just one moment.
The future looks uncertain for almost all businesses today. Design thinking options.
Okay, so another clippings is very interesting. This is in the social context, how to use design thinking to solve some of our social problems.
The philosophy of design thinking has been driving innovation across sectors. When you look at some of the pioneers of design thinking, like Airbnb, Nike, or Uber Eats, you will realize that all of them have found success by solving the problems of their customers. And that is the beauty of design thinking. The human-centered approach of design thinking puts the consumer at the forefront by addressing their needs and problems. Therefore, it is logical to presume that design thinking could play a critical role in solving complex problems faced by societies across India and the world. And you would be absolutely right. In the last few years, NGOs and private enterprises have partnered up with government agencies to solve problems faced by the rural population of India. Let's look at a few success stories where design thinking has helped transform lives in rural India. Jeevan Bindi. In India, millions of women suffer from iodine deficiency, which can cause goiter, breast cancer, and pregnancy issues, especially in rural areas. While there are pills and other forms of medication available to correct iodine deficiency, the hesitancy to use Western medication has proved to be a major roadblock. Singapore-based philanthropic organization Grey for Good set out to find a solution to this problem. As iodine can be absorbed through the skin, Grey for Good came up with the idea to use bindis to administer iodine. Neil Vasant Medical Foundation and Research Center, under the brand name Talwar Bindi, developed bindis that serve as iodine patches. Hence the life-saving dot or the Jeevan Bindi was born. Jeevan Bindi delivers 100 to 150 micrograms of iodine by absorption through the skin. Aram Help Desk. A huge number of students in rural India come from poor families that cannot afford to buy school bags and other necessities. They mostly have unfurnished classrooms where students sit on the floor for hours and work without any desk. Aram, an NGO that works with marginalized families in urban slums and villages, began working on a solution to make desks and school bags accessible to students in rural India. They needed a solution that was low-priced, easy to assemble, served as a desk and bag, and was made from recyclable materials. While volunteering with Aram, Sanuri Gomez realized that cardboard boxes can be re-engineered into low-cost bags that can double up as desks. Thus, the Aram Help Desk came into being. The Aram Help Desk is manufactured by a team of 20 youth in Satara, Maharashtra, and distributed to children across the country. So far, 1.5 million students have developed from the Help Desk. Another example where design thinking has
Okay, so this is just an example, and you can see that design thinking, the main thing is the innovative approach. So innovative approach is the and user-centric approach. You have to be innovative and you have to consider the problem of user. Okay, so design thinking aims at satisfying three criteria. One is desirability, second is feasibility, and third is viability. Okay, so desirability is basically what do people desire. Okay, so that's why essentially the user-centric kind of part of design thinking. Then feasibility is basically what people are designing, whether it's feasible to make solution to satisfy those desires. Okay, and third is the viability. Can the company profit from this solution? Okay. So now you can easily map this design thinking philosophy to design your life. Okay. So desirability is basically choose a life path that aligns with your passion and value for true fulfillment. Okay, so that's how you can choose a life path. Okay, and as I said, that user is most important. So here user is you yourself because you are designing your life, and user is the people around you for whom you are making your life, and they should be happy with your contribution to the society. Next is feasibility. Ensure your envisioned life is achievable with your current skill and resources. If not, you have to augment your skill and you have to increase your resource investment. Okay, resource could be financial resource, could be intellectual resource, could be anything. Okay, so you have to make it feasible. And viability is basically to conform your life choice. Conform your life choice are sustainable financially, emotionally, and physically. Okay, so whether what plan you are making is really viable means for survival. Okay, so it can give you financial, emotional, and physical satisfaction. Okay, so these are the five typical step in design thinking process. First, as I said, is empathize. Okay, so you basically interview the user and trying to understand the user requirement, user need. Next is define. So after identifying the user need, you define the problem. Okay, so what is exactly the problem? Okay, that is important. Okay, so in the video you said that problem is the, for example, iodine deficiency. That could be the problem, and then ideate different form of solution. One could be a medical solution for iodine, or another could be bindi solution. Okay, so the different ideas. And then each idea you have to validate. For validating, you have to do a prototype building, and then you have to do a testing to validate that particular idea and acceptability to the user. Okay, so coming back to the life design, so design thinking is basically divergent and convergent in two dimensions. One is analyzing first, considering the user need, and then converging into defined state, and then once again diverging to ideate phase, and then once again converging to the after prototyping and testing, converging into some actionable ideas. Okay, so when you come to life design, same five steps are basically we are trying to use. And then it's about applying creative problem solving. Life is a very complex problem. Okay, so everybody would agree to that. And then we need to solve. And it's not a one-time solution, as I said. At different phases of life, you need to solve this kind of problem. And you need to take a different turn in your life path to actually properly solve or properly get satisfied with your surroundings and with yourself. Okay. So, as I said, this is inspired by Stanford University Designing of Life program and Marx Savika's conceptualization of life designing as a paradigm for career construction in 21st century. Okay. So, based on that, as I said, the life design process also have 5 phases. Started with empathize. Reflect on your interests, values, strengths, weakness, and joys through self-assessment exercise. Reflect also on the ways you can make others' life meaningful. I'll elaborate on each step later. Okay, first I'm defining this 5 step. Next is define. Clearly articulate your goal and aspiration in key areas of your life. So you have to identify your life view and your work view and your perception of a balanced life that ensures personal fulfillment and growth. Okay. So that's the definition of your life. It may change once again. I'm repeatedly saying that maybe it can change after 10 years or 5 years. But at that point of time, you need to redesign your life. Okay. So life is a journey. So it's not a single design problem. Okay. It's a multiple design problem. Then ideate. So if you define your life view, work view, and a balanced life concept, then brainstorm multiple possible futures and create different life scenarios. Okay. And then a prototype means do a small experiment and to learn, to gain clarity and take informed decision. It's not like suddenly you don't know what biotechnology is, and then you want to study biotechnology and go to the engineering college to study biotechnology. You should be aware that what this particular subject is talking and whether you'll be liking it or not. I've seen one engineer, NEET aspirant, okay, appearing for NEET exam to become a doctor, okay, second time, third time. But when she came to me, she said that she's not interested in the medicine profession at all because she don't want to be a doctor. She doesn't want to be a doctor because she disliked the blood and the emergency, the front ending, the busy life of a doctor. But family insisting on becoming a doctor, that's why she's giving a NEET exam. But so this kind of thing happens without knowing the profession in detail. You are sometimes taking decision and then go to that particular profession. Test, essentially evaluate your ideas and iterate this. Now I'll come to each individual step. Empathize. Empathize is know thyself implies deep self-awareness and empathize within and beyond. So it's self-compassion and empathy towards others. Okay, so inward and outward. But in order to be empathetic, you need to know. Okay, so the first part of empathize is to know yourself so that you can be empathetic about yourself. Okay, so in order to know yourself, you have to first understand your strength, weakness, opportunities, and threat. Okay, so evaluate your competitive position in your social and professional life. Okay, assess the internal and external factor as well as current and future potential. So SWOT analysis is essentially trying to give you a perspective of what are the internal sources like strength or weakness and the external forces that might impact you, the opportunities and threat. Okay. So if you look at that, what are your strengths? Internal positive traits that give you an edge, for example, skill like communication skill, leadership skill, creativity, or personal quality like resilient, curiosity, emotional intelligence, or achievement, certification, strong network, those things. So you need to ask yourself, what do others praise me for? In what area I am good at? Okay. And of course, you have to remember that strength does not come from physical capacity, it comes from an indomitable will. That means that strength is not given. Okay, you have to acquire that. And if you want to acquire strength, if you like something to be acquired, you can do that. Okay. At the same time, you have to be aware of your weakness. Okay. So you have to see the skill to improve procrastination, disorganization, low confidence. Okay. So the your emotional intelligence, fear of public speaking or self doubt. Okay. Limited experience in lack of networking. Okay. So you have to ask yourself, what do I struggle with or avoid? Okay. Want to avoid. Okay. And once again, weakness is not at all a weakness. It's essentially awareness of your uh, uh, problem or your weakness and a kind of self criticism, which help you to get out of this weakness. Unless you know your weakness, and you may not be able to get out of the weakness. Okay. And sometimes you accept your weakness. Okay. So, for example, there are a lot of students coming from rural background. They may not be good at speaking English, but that weakness may be there because uh, Indians speak better English than Chinese or Japanese. Okay, so that may be weakness. It's good to speak good English. That is true. But if you feel that that is a weakness, you can try for that. Or if you accept that weakness, you can even go with that with manageable kind of these things, English speaking kind of. Next is the external factor, opportunities. What are the kind of opportunities you can exploit? So that you have to see or decide in your domain. Okay. So networking and collaboration is very important these days, especially with the internet domain, internet era. Okay. So you can build good network with people, and you have to be aware of the emerging trend to look for the opportunity where you can go. Okay. And then you have several scope for learning in these days, online courses, scholarship, internship, all these things. So these are all opportunities which you should tap into. And then the awareness of different career openings. Okay. So these are the trend you should be aware of, which you can leverage with your strength and keeping in mind your weakness. Okay. And then comes the threat. Okay. The competition. Okay. Job market and instability, the change in industry, obsolescence and automation risk, economic factors like wars and other economic or political situation worldwide. And personal constraint is, there could be health issue, there could be financial constraint, and all this kind of stuff. So essential point is that you have to be aware of your strength and weakness, and you have to exploit the opportunities around you, and also have to consider the threat around you. Okay. Then comes the life skill competencies. Okay, so life skill are a set of psychological competencies, include resilience, personal agencies, and self-confidence. So these skills are crucial for building strong relationship, managing emotions effectively, and enhancing critical thinking and problem solving. So it's World Health Organization identified this as the most important asset to lead a fulfilling life. Okay. So you see there are three segments in life skill competency: social skill, which compose of empathy, the self-awareness, informal communication, interpersonal relationship. Then emotional skill, coping with stress, coping with emotion. And then cognitive skill, creative thinking, critical thinking, problem solving, decision making. So you need to evaluate on this aspect of your life skill competencies. Similarly, you have to have a set of career skill competencies, which talks about uh, digital skill like your digital channel for growth, learning AI tools and techniques, the career preparation skill, the report writing, resume writing, interview performance, all this kind of stuff, and guidings for study abroad. So this is kind of career preparation skill. Career progression skill for you, it may not be relevant, but once you are in a career, it may be important to how to increase your career capital. Career capital meaning different dimension of your career. Okay, it's not only the kind of the job actually you are performing, but other than that, how you can improve your profile so that you are indispensable. Okay, in that sense. Entrepreneurship skill is always needed even if you are doing a job. Okay, so how entrepreneurial mindset you are having, how do you manage your relation, and how you are can you strengthen your adaptability quotient so that in changing environment you can easily confront. Okay, so there are certain worksheets which we use essentially to evaluate this strength, weakness, competencies, and the SWOT analysis. This is basically some kind of questionnaire. So I'm not going into detail of that. But this kind of test needs to be administered in order to find your different strength, weakness, and your life skill and career skill, so that you can take actions towards that. Okay. Then once you know yourself, that's only a part of it, because ultimately you are a part of uh, in a global world, okay, global community. So you have to know the different types of careers which are available around you to contribute to the society. Okay, so usually those are categorized into 16 career clusters: agriculture, food, natural resource, architecture, construction, art, heavy technology, communication, business management, administration, education training, finance, government, public administration, health science, hospitality, tourism, human service, information technology, law, public safety. These are very standard categorization where most of the career can be fit into. Okay, so and there are a lot of websites also available here. For example, this unilearn.org.in. Okay, so if you go to the career guidance portal, you will find that there are different career clusters, and if you just click on that, you will have a good idea of what are the options available in that particular cluster. Okay, so also in West Bengal government also has a career guidance portal where it's basically developed using UNESCO kind of uh, support. And if you see, you can view the career card here. Same thing, the different career options and the detail of the career options. If you want to do something in engineering, what are the options you can have? What are the engineering options and where you can pursue those things? Okay, this kind of awareness also important because you need to know what are the kind of possibilities. For example, here in this diagram, it's divided into broadly into 6 categories, and based on 6 categories, the other career clusters are mapped. So you need to know the different possibilities. Okay, so these are the knowledge you need to have in order to empathize about yourself and to your surroundings in order contemplating on your life choice and career aspiration. Okay, so here you have to define your life view and work view, and you have to define your dream balanced life or your life vision. Okay, using the wheel of life, as I said. Okay, so here, if you want to progress further, you have to see that life view is different for different persons. For example, some people prefer personal fulfillment, pursuing passion or interest to seek meaning and purpose. Maybe you are a singer or you are a dancer or you are a cricket player and you are very passionate about that. At any cost, you should pursue about that. Otherwise, we won't be getting the filmmakers or actors or singers or players. Okay, because they work for their personal fulfillment and that's their priority, and they struggle quite hard in order to achieve a particular position. Okay, but that's their passion. That's their life view. Some people prefer work life balance, creating harmony between work and personal life. They don't want to get too much into work to disturb their personal life. Some prefer financial affluence, focusing more on earning money and wealth. Some is on spirituality, seeking inner peace and spiritual practice. Okay. Some are focused on community connection, focusing on community-oriented activities, public service. For example, the politicians. Okay, so Arvind Kejriwal, for example, the IT graduate, IIT Kharagpur. Okay, so he chose to be first in the civil service and then to fully into politics. Okay, so adventurism is seeking adventure and new experience. Okay, so mountaineering or exploring in different deserted area or sea or whatever, some adventure activity. Minimalism is some focusing on simplicity over materialism, simple life. Independence is valuing flexibility and freedom of choice in life. And achievement and success is celebrating achievement and progress in life. So you can assess your inclination. It's not that you have only one kind of domain of interest or kind of this thing, but you can say some two, three, four traits in your life. Means you may not be fully this thing financially driven, okay, but you prefer combination of personal fulfillment, the finance and independence, all this kind of stuff. But you need to be kind of careful about what your life view is. Okay, and there are other assessment of life view which we can use. So one is called aspiration index. Aspiration index is a tool which evaluates individuals' long-term life goal and aspiration. Okay, it's categorized into two type of aspiration. One is intrinsic aspiration, such as meaningful relationship, personal growth, community contribution, which come from inner self. And another is extrinsic aspiration, such as wealth, fame, or image. Okay, so here there are questions like my life goal is to be a very wealthy person, or to grow and learn new things, to have my names known by many people, to have good friends that I can count on, to successfully hide the sign of aging, the work for the betterment of society. You see that there are other questions also. So it's basically trying to categorize you whether you are wealth driven or personal growth driven or fame driven or relationship driven or image driven or community driven. One second is just a scoring, so it's not a 1-0 kind of thing. Okay, you may score little higher in personal growth and maybe little lower in fame. All this kind of stuff comes. So that will indicative of your intrinsic and extrinsic aspirations, okay, which may guide you to form a coherent life view in your case, which you can pursue. So that becomes your the value. Okay. And then similarly, the work view. Work view is very difficult at this stage when you are not very familiar with the type of work you'll be doing in future. So since you are a student, but through internship, you definitely try to gain ideas about different kind of work view. And this work view has to have a matching with your life view. Okay, for example, if your life view is minimalistic living, your work view should not be driven towards financial. Okay, so financially driven work view is prioritizing high paid job. Okay, so I change my job because the other job is giving me good pay. So this is one view, but there's nothing wrong or right in view, but the question is that you have to be consistent with your work view. It may change, but you have to have some work view. What kind of work? For my case, actually, I always prefer this innovation oriented kind of view, where seeking career in R&D and autonomy oriented view, seeking independence and autonomy. These two are very predominant work view in my case. I don't want to be dictated, and I want some kind of R&D type of career. Okay, so that's I never my work was never financially driven. Okay, so worldview also you can assess, and there are tools available to assess. One tool is career choice and inclination assessment, by which you not only assess the work view, but you also try to assess to what extent you are familiar with different form of work view. For example, your information about the roles, industries, and qualification, your focus, whether it is you have enough clarity in your focus, whether your work view is realistic, and whether you know the proper tactics to how to fulfill your worldview by doing different things. Okay. So Riasec is also a important test which can actually make your worldview, if not the career, but at least your interest view. So whether you are realistic, investigative, artistic, social, enterprising, or conventional, these are important dimension uh, to actually understand your kind of worldview. Okay. So after life view and work view, it comes to define your dream balanced life. Okay. So how you want to see yourself in all the sectors. Okay. For example, environment. Okay. Where do I desire to stay? Do I want to go or stay abroad? So what is my dream home and workplace destination? Similarly, environment of workplace. Should it be large corporate or cozy small company or research institute? Uh, do I prefer field work or outdoor work, or I prefer office work only? Similarly, in maintaining or desirable or desired environment, in acquiring desired environment, how do we achieve this? Okay, so how different plans can fulfill your dream environment? Okay. For example, there is one question in the chat box going abroad. Okay, so those things are important implication of environment. Okay, so whether you have a desire to that, but that desire for changing the environment in the other countries. Okay, so make you weak in the social connection. So that's why weak in the social connection in the sense that you are leaving your own birthplace or family or whatever. Okay, so this kind of balance needs to be worked out. Then the work profession, interest. What industry or academic field am I interested in? What type of work do I do? Okay. And the kind of desired career. So once you have a knowledge about different career clusters, so you may be in a position to decide that. Okay. Main thing you have to decide what type of work or activities you like and that motivates you, and what type of work activities motivates you. You dislike that. Okay. It's not essentially you don't like to involved in those kind of work. These things is important, and you essentially need to define what is good work for you and what is bad work for you. Okay. Then how social contribution, the third segment, how do want to impact or contribute towards your family, towards your community. Okay, so how you can through your work, how you can do meaningful contribution. If not, how can you do something else so that your beyond your work also you have something responsible contribution towards your society. Then health and well-being. Okay, so it basically look for both mental health and physical health. Okay, so uh, uh, what are my strategies for promoting mental and emotional well-being and work-life balance, and what activities contribute to my physical well-being? For example, if I select some job which maybe may disturb my physical health or mental health, that I should be careful from the very beginning. Okay, so that can happen. So if then the social connection, okay, how can I improve the communication with my close community? How do how do I build my relationship? How do I build my support network? So different job profile or different your dream, different version of your life has different impact on social connection. But you have to maintain those social connections. Then finance security, the money and job satisfaction, the financial goal, saving and investment. So what's your financial goal? It need not be very financially affluent, or it may be financially very affluent. Okay, but this goal needs to be specified, because based on that you have to drive your right direction. Self-development, skill acquisition, experience, adaptation. How you can go for that. And then play and leisure. Okay, so how do you propose to enjoy your leisure time, and what are the activities you want to pursue in your leisure time? Okay, so your dream balance life is essentially filling up this kind of form that where you write something about environment, work profession, social contribution, health and well-being. So everywhere you are essentially trying to figure out what's your dream environment. So, dream environment has to be realistic. So, it's not a kind of fantasy, okay? Because every time you have to ask, how do I achieve this? Am I feeling confident or uncertain? Does the plan make sense within itself? Is it consistent with my worldview and life view? Okay. So, that's why the dream environment or dream work view or dream social contribution, all these things, community, all these things actually needs to be feasible. Okay, so as we have mentioned that you have to always ask that how do you can achieve this, and am I feeling confident about this or uncertain. So this finish your define phase where you define your life view, you define your work view, and you define your dream balance life. Then comes the ideate phase. Ideate is basically is called kind of Odyssey planning. So Odyssey planning, Odyssey typically refers to long and eventful journey, often with adventure and challenges along the way. Odyssey plan are a structured way to explore different potential futures and make decisions based on those explorations. Okay. So you imagine multiple future, multiple life versions, and mapping out each path and see that what you need to do to achieve this, and then you explore consequences. For example, let's take an example, BA in sociology. Okay, suppose you passed BA in sociology. After that, you can do B.Ed and go for a job, or you can do MBA and go for a job, or you can do MBA and go for a PhD also, and then go for a job. You can do masters in sociology either in India or abroad. Okay, you can do masters in other disciplines like media science, law, or public policy, or you can do the same thing in India or go abroad. And always you can do PhD. You can leave sociology altogether and be an entrepreneur, okay? Because you are fond of designing, for example, so you want to create a boutique or you want to do something else. You want to create your own business, okay? So you have a lot of ideas. You can create some product or service, so which will be beneficial for others. So these are all the possibilities after doing BA in sociology, and these are all kind of live versions, okay? And these live versions, you have to mapping out each path means what you need to do in order to achieve each live versions. Okay, and then whether you are liking it or how much you are capable of doing this. Okay, so but how do you assess that? Okay, so because you don't know what MBA is and we don't know what the PhD is all about, you don't know what is a master's in media science and all. So you need to do some kind of prototyping. Okay, prototyping is basically doing small experiments or small study, knowledge gathering. Okay, for example, suppose you want to be a lawyer, for example. Okay, so you can do some internship in some law firm, or you can do some small projects. Or if you want to be a designer, you can do something. You create your own portfolio in design. Okay, so you explore some volunteer opportunities. Okay, so you get involved in this kind of thing, whether you want to be a designer or you want to be a lawyer or you want to pursue a research career. So you try to do small experience to test this. Okay. So to understand what does it mean. Okay. And then if you feel that okay, it's interesting, but you need to develop certain skill around that. For example, I know one person who is interested in Japanese animation. So he's doing animation, but Japanese animation. So he tried to develop skill in Japanese animation. There are a lot of resources in internet through which you can actually develop that particular skill. Okay, so after this prototyping and testing, you need to evaluate. That means test. Okay, so testing is basically you need to know that okay, you may like different like versions. Okay, so in order to do that, you need to map it into your wheel of life. Okay, so how close it is towards your wheel of life. Suppose you have two life versions, life plan A and life plan B, and you have to see that how it's get impact your wheel of life, all the dimensions. For example, life plan A in the domain of career consideration, work, finance, and environment, or personal growth, or relationship and well-being, or societal contribution. Okay, so how they are affecting your wheel of life, and based on this, you can decide that which is closer to your dream balanced life. Okay. Not only that, you also have to figure out which one is feasible. Okay. Because maybe life plan A is much more closer to your balance, your dream balanced life, but it may requires a lot of resource. Okay, and your confidence level may not be very high in that particular domain. Okay, although it's coherent with your work view and life view, but you may not be able to achieve that. So that's why you have to keep plan B also in backup in case you are not successful in achieving plan A. So you can go to plan B. So that's basically the kind of strategy you can use. You can evaluate the feasibility of each your plan or your desire, and then you have to have something backup because in our case, our country is very competitive. You cannot achieve everything. So you have to have different plans for that. So after you evaluate, you can take a conclusive decision about that. Okay. So I stop here today because I explained this kind of steps. Okay. So through which you can empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test and evaluate. Okay, so how you can design your live version at this particular stage. And then once again, I said that it's not one time and it's crucial to regularly review and revisit your action plan and ensure they remain aligned with your evolving goal and values. Okay, and stay open to feedback and willing to adapt and remember that journey of self-discovery and life design is an ongoing process.